Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adrian, and today I'm making a video that I don't quite know where it's gonna go, so bear with me on this one a little bit. Today we are going to be talking about the Wheel of Time. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about my story with the Wheel of Time. For those of you who have seen my favourite fantasy series, Wheel of Time is on that list. If you don't want spoilers, mute me now. It is number 1 on that list. You can come back again. Great. So I obviously love this series. I obviously really enjoy it. And I will tell you this, that as a 29-year-old adult, I only started reading The Eye of the World. I only started reading the very first book of this series last year. So as a 28-year-old, just a month before lockdown started here in Britain from the pandemic, I started reading Eye of the World. And basically the point of this video is that I just want to talk a little bit about the Wheel of Time. I want to tell you my story with it, what it's meant to me, and just to tell you that really give it a go. Please, I know it feels like a massive commitment, but if you've never read this, at least give it a go. I'm not saying you should read all of it, I'm saying give the first couple a go, okay? But let me just start by saying I started the series at the beginning of last year. I started it in February. I finished the series in February this year. So it took me a year to read The Wheel of Time. And I was reading a Wheel of Time book pretty much consistently for that entire time. I think I had 2 breaks where I didn't have a Wheel of Time book on the go. Now, I wasn't rushing them. I was reading them slowly. And I think that's one of the reasons that I fell in love with this series so hard. As far as building a world, I do not think there is anyone better than Robert Jordan. Let me say that again. I do not think there is anyone better than Robert Jordan at building a world. I love Tolkien. I absolutely adore J.R.R. Tolkien. I adore Middle-earth. I adore the Silmarillion and all the backstory we get. I love Lord of the Rings. It is my favourite standalone book of all time. But no one builds a world like Robert Jordan. And by that, it's not just the actual world and what is in it, but it is the way Jordan describes it. And this is one of the things that makes the Wheel of Time so difficult for some people, is there is a lot of heavy, bulky description of food, of clothing, particularly dresses. But that is what Jordan is using to expand and show us the cultures, the way that one culture is different to another, the way that the world is different and varies. And I think it's really important and part of why I absolutely love this world. I don't know if you've ever had this, where you read a series or a book while you're listening to a particular type of music or even a particular album or artist, and that music now encapsulates this world for you. I ended up doing this with Wheel of Time sort of accidentally. I was listening to a lot of Alexis French at the time, which is he's a composer. His albums are mainly piano music, and they are really wonderful, great background reading music. No vocals or anything, which always helps me when I'm reading. But now whenever I hear any piano music, particularly Alexis French, I am immediately pulled back into this world of the Wheel of Time. It just grabs me and drags me back, and I think of Egwene, and I think of Nynaeve, I think of Rand and Mat and Perrin. I think of this world that I was so engaged in and engrossed in for a year of my life. And it was not a good year. That's obvious, yeah. It was 2020 through to 2021. It's not been a good year for anyone, really. Everyone's had their struggles, and I'm not saying my struggles are worse than anyone else's by any stretch. But it's not been a good year for any of us, I don't think, or very few of us. And yet, there was something about reading The Wheel of Time that made me feel at home. There is something about Jordan's writing style and the characters particularly that he has created that was like being at home. Now, weirdly, I was at home at the time because I wasn't allowed to go out from home, but it was just a reassuring, comforting place to be. Now, don't get me wrong, it is exciting, it can be bombastic, there's plenty of action and amazing set pieces that happen in this series, as you would expect in a 14-book series, but it just felt like home. And that's not the places so much. Now, I think the places and the world building is amazing, but the places didn't feel like home because we were constantly traveling. But the characters just felt like a joy to be with. They were like being with friends. It was like hanging out with friends when I wasn't allowed to hang out with my friends because of COVID restrictions. And I cannot express to you how much this helped me with lockdown. Now, there's lots of other things going on in life, like I've got a daughter, obviously I've got my faith, there's lots of stuff that is helping me get through this, but I think it's amazing that a book series can do this for someone and can help in such a way. And I think that it is amazing that I had such a joyous thing to turn to when all around was going crazy. I couldn't work for the vast majority of lockdown, yet I could look after my daughter, she could have a nap, and I could sit and read a chapter of the whatever book I was on in the Wheel of Time, and it felt like coming home. I could try to put into words why I love this series, and that's kind of what I'm doing now, but in all honesty, what is really happening here is I just want to say that I really appreciate the world that was built here. I think the continuity of it being 14 books, 15 books is amazing and was amazing for me last year. And just to give you a little bit of an idea how much it means to me, I still haven't read New Spring. Now, for those of you who don't know The Wheel of Time, New Spring was written after book 10, I believe, and it is a prequel. It is before the first book of the series. Many people have debates about when you should read New Spring. People say after book 5, people say after book 10, people say once you finish the series. I cannot bring myself to read New Spring. And that is because it would mean the series is over. I would have nothing new to read in this world. And for the minute, about 5-6 months after I finish this series, I'm not quite ready for that yet. I'm not ready to not have any new adventures in this world, not to be with these characters again in this world. And that tells you something of how much I hold dear to this, how important this series is to me, how much I love it. And this is just turning into a massive gush, but I really, really want to encourage you, if you have never tried to read The Wheel of Time, pick up The Eye of the World. Please do it. Now, I accept there is a large percentage of the reading population, even the large percentage of fantasy fans, who are not going to get on with this series. And that's fine. It is not aged incredibly well, especially some of the earlier books. It's not perfect by any stretch, and I know not everyone will get on with it. They won't get on with the writing style, the length, even some of the characterizations. But if you look at the way this story builds and the character arcs that happen, there are no better character arcs in fantasy, in my opinion. And that is probably due to the sheer amount of page time that we get. So I don't want to pretend that that's not a factor. It is. If you follow someone for 14 books, they're going to progress and the arc is going to be amazing. So I don't want to pretend that is anything other than that. But I really think it is worth your time. Now, if you read The Eye of the World and it's not for you, great, that's fine. I understand. It's not for everyone. And nobody should have to like every book or like whatever books I like. Like, that's not a thing. But I do think you should give The Eye of the World a go, because you might just find the series that is so much for you, like this series was so much for me at that point in time. I can absolutely see myself rereading this, probably not this year, maybe next year. I can see myself doing it more gradually than I did when I first read it, when I just sort of went from one book to the next over and over. But I will never read it for the first time again, and that makes me sad. It makes me sad that I will never experience these characters going through what they go through, these plot points, these arcs, for the first time again. I hope that makes sense. For those of you who are interested in reading The Eye of the World, but are worried about the slog that happens much later, one, nobody hates Wheel of Time as much as Wheel of Time fans. No one hates it as much as Wheel of Time fans do. And actually, they love to rag on it, because that's what you do when you talk about something for this long and you love something this much. You pick up on the negatives. I do not think the slog is as bad as people make out. People say it's a 4 or 5 book thing. For me, it was 1 book. Book 10 was weak. And that for me personally, now I know for lots of people the slog is a real thing and they struggle for a third of the series, but for me, book 10 was bad and the rest was incredible, and I cannot encourage you enough to at least give it a go. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to my gush, rant, ramble, word vomit about The Wheel of Time. I just want to say I love the series. It has meant very, very much to me over this last year. And I really want to encourage you, if you have any interest in this series at all, please give The Eye of the World a go. Start reading it, see how you feel. It's not a quick, snappy read, but it is an immersion in the world. You're following these characters that we grow to know so well. And their character arcs, in my opinion, cannot be beaten. They are absolutely incredible. Thanks for bearing with me. Click the like if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to hear more rambles and rants from me. And hopefully I will see you guys again soon.